Hello, my name is Makena Bowen, and today I'll be your student nurse. How are you today?
I'm good.
I'm glad to hear that. So today I'm going to be performing a head-to-toe assessment. So before we get started, I'm just going to perform hand hygiene. All right. So first, I'm going to start off by inspecting and palpating your head. Okay, so after inspecting and palpating your head, it's round and symmetrical, and there are no masses or indentations. So now I'm just going to ask if you could squeeze your eyes shut. Okay, now can you wrinkle your forehead, clench your teeth, okay, puff your mouth, and then can you smile for me? Okay, great. So the patient's cranial nerves 5 and 7 are intact. So now I'm just going to ask if you can taste this and describe if it's sweet, salty, or sour. Okay, sweet. Okay, so your cranial nerve 7 is intact. So now I'm just going to check your sinuses and make sure everything is well there. Okay, then you can just remove your glasses really quick. So I'm going to start with the frontal and then move down to the maxillary. Do you feel any pain or tenderness?
No.
Okay, so no pain or tenderness was felt. So now I'm just going to inspect your eyes. Okay, so your eyes appear to be normally aligned. There's no protrusion or sunken appearance. So now I'm just going to inspect your pupils. I'm going to. Okay, so the pupils constricted from 5 to 3. Now I'm going to perform a diagnostics test. So if you could just follow the movement of my finger. Okay, so the eye movement was parallel. Cranial nerves 3, 4, and 6 are intact. And now I'm just going to perform accommodation. So you could just focus on this object in the distance while I hold my finger here. Okay, so the patient's eyes are equal and round. They reacted to light and accommodation. So now I'm just going to get my ophthalmoscope and I'm going to test for red reflex. Okay, so the red reflex was seen and there are no black or opaque areas. So now I'm going to move on to the nose and mouth. Well, actually, no, now I'm going to move on to the ear. So first, let me inspect your ear. Okay, so the ears appear to be symmetrical. There are no lesions, and now I'm just going to perform a whisper test. So you could just close your, we're going to start off with your right ear. If you could close your left ear and then repeat the words or whatever I say. I'm sorry, I got so tired. Repeat what I say.
288.
Okay, correct. And now you can just close your left ear and then we're going to do the right ear.
SB6.
Okay, great. So the patient's cranial nerve 8 is intact. So now I'm just going to perform a Weber test. So just let me know if you hear the sound equally or on both sides.
Yes.
Okay, so the patient was successfully able to hear the sound in both ears. So now I'm just going to inspect your ear canals and tympanic membrane. Okay, so the ear canals are clear and the tympanic membrane they're pearly gray in both ears, and the cone of light was at 5 o'clock in the right ear, and then it was at 7 o'clock in the left ear. So now I'm going to move on to the nose and mouth. So first I'm going to start off by inspecting your nose. Okay, so your nose is symmetrical and there are no deformities. So now I'm just going to check for its patency. If you could close your right nostril and breathe in for me. Okay, and then can you repeat with the left nostril? Okay, great. So the patency was clear. Now I'm going to check for Now I'm going to inspect. Oh, I'm sorry. Now I'm actually going to test your cranial nerve number 1. So I'm just going to ask you if you could describe how this smells for me.
Vanilla.
Vanilla? Okay, great. So the patient's cranial nerve 1 is intact. And now I'm going to inspect the inside of your mouth. So you can just open. Okay, so the buccal mucosa, uvula, teeth, the frenulum, hard palate, soft palate, posterior pharynx are all, they're pink, moist, and even. So now I'm just going to ask you if you could smile and let me see your gums and teeth. Okay, so the gums are pink and healthy, and the teeth, there are no signs of tooth decay. And then I also forgot to mention that your tonsils grade is 1+. So now I'm just going to assess for tongue movement. If you can repeat after me and say light, tight, dynamite.
Light, tight, dynamite.
Okay, great. So the patient doesn't have any signs of atrophy. Your speech is clear and distinct, and cranial nerve 12 is intact. So now I'm just going to take this, and then if you could say "ah" for me. Okay. Okay, so the patient's uvula is positioned midline. Your gag reflex is intact. Cranial nerves 9 and 10 are intact, and yeah. So now we're going to move on to the neck. So first, I'm going to palpate your trachea. Okay, so the trachea is positioned midline, and now I'm going to move on to palpating your lymph nodes. Okay, so preocular, postocular, occipital, submental, submandibular, jugular-digastric, superficial cervical, deep cervical. Okay, and I'm going to move down to the posterior cervical, and then the supraclavicular. Okay, great. So your lymph nodes are non-polymovable. And now I am just going to feel and listen to your carotid artery. Okay. Okay, great. So the patient's carotid artery pulse is moderate, and it is bilateral. So now I'm going to move on to assessing your skin. So first, let me look this back. Okay, so the patient's skin is even and uniform. The skin is consistent with the patient's ethnic background. And now could you give me your hand? I'm just going to palpate it. This is the temperature. Okay, so the patient has good skin turgor, and the temperature is within normal ranges. So now I'm going to move on to the cardiovascular and respiratory system. So first I'm just going to look at your respirations. Okay, so the patient has full symmetric respirations, and now I'm just going to listen for your breathing. Okay, so the breathing is quiet, rhythmic, and smooth. Now I'm going to listen to your lung sounds. You can just breathe in. I'm gonna assess your lung sounds from the back. Breathe in. Okay, so after assessing your lung sounds are normal and resonance is present. So now I'm just going to listen to your heart sounds. Okay, so S1 and S2 are present and there are no extra sounds. So now I'm just going to assess your pulse. I'm sorry. I'm gonna start with this hand. Okay. Okay, so the pulse is 2 plus and it is bilateral. So now I'm going to move on to the abdomen. So if you could just lay down and lie back. Okay. So your abdomen is symmetric and it is contoured. So now I'm just going to listen in all 4 quadrants. I'm going to start with the lower quadrant. Okay, so after listening to your vowel sounds, you have this gurgling and cascading vowel sounds, which is normal. So now I'm just going to percuss your abdomen to check and see if there are any abdominal. Okay, so after percussing your abdomen, there are no signs of hyperresonance or dullness. Tympany is present. So now I'm just going to palpate your abdomen to make sure there are no masses or tenderness. Just let me know if you feel any pain. Okay, so no masses or tenderness was there were no masses found and no tenderness was on the abdomen. So now I'm just going to move on to the musculoskeletal. I'm going to move on to the musculoskeletal. So first I am just going to first I'm going to assess the range of motion in your neck and in your arms first. So if you could just lift up for me. Okay, so I'm going to have you touch your chin to your neck and then try to move your neck on both sides. Try to touch your ear to your shoulder. Okay, great. And then if you could just lay your head back like this. Okay, so now I'm going to test the range of motion in your arms. If you could just hold your arms out, maybe like that. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you to lay back and I'm going to check the range of motion in your legs. Okay, so if you could just lift your leg up and like bend it at the joint for me. Yep. Okay. And then do the same thing with the other leg. Okay, great. So now I'm going to check the range of motion in your spine. If you could just get up and then try to lean towards your toes with your knees straight. Okay, great. So now I am just going to okay, let me refer back to my chart. Okay. So now I'm just going to test your muscle strength in your hands and your arms. So you can take a seat, okay? And then you can pull up your arms, and then I'm just going to pull them towards me while you resist. Okay, great. And then I'm going to do the same thing for your leg. So if you could just scoot back a little bit, and I'm going to have you bend your leg a little bit, and then I'm going to pull towards me. So you can sit, but like kind of like that, so they're hanging off. Yep. Okay. And then try to resist against what I'm pulling. Okay. So the patient's muscle strength is there. There are no signs of atrophy. So now I'm just going to move on to the neurological system. So first I'm going to perform the Romberg test. So you can just stand up. Okay, and I'm going to have you close your eyes for 20 seconds. Okay, so there is no swaying. That means your balance is intact. So now I'm just going to ask you if you could do the tandem test. So that is when we're going to do it right here. So you're basically walking a straight line, heel to toe. Okay. Okay, so the patient has a balanced, steady gait. And now I am just going to perform some sensory tests on you. So first I'm going to start with a test where I give you an object and you close your eyes and just let me know what the object is. Okay. Close your eyes. Okay, and then I'm going to hand you an object in your hand. Could you tell me what it is?
That's a pen.
Okay, great. So now I'm going to get another object and I'm going to do the same thing for your other hand. Okay. Could you tell me what this is?
That's a paper clip.
Paper clip? Okay, great. Okay. And now I'm just going to perform a light touch test. You can open your eyes now. I'm going to perform a light touch testing and then just say now when you feel the touch. So I'm going to do it on your forearm.
No.
Okay, great. So the patient's touch sensories are intact. So I think that completes the head to toe examination. I'm just going to go back and check my charts to make sure I got everything. Okay, so it does look like I missed two things, a part of your assessment. So back to the musculoskeletal system, I actually did want to test for resistance when it came to your shoulders. So I'm just going to put my hands on your shoulders and ask you to shrug up. Okay, great. So cranial nerve 11 is intact. And then I also missed the part with your capillary refill. That's very important, so we want to make sure that's intact before you leave today. Okay. And then I'm going to do the same for your lower extremity. So if you could just remove your sock. Okay. And then I'm going to put gloves on. Okay, so your capillary refill is intact and the return was under 2 seconds, which is great. And that means everything is normal. So I'm just going to perform hand hygiene now, and that concludes the head and toe assessment. Thank you for your time.